Hi everyone, my name is Cole, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can migrate my VR sword system into a pre-existing VR project made in Unreal Engine. So for this tutorial I made a new project with the VR template in Unreal Engine 4, and if you open that up, this is what you'll see. So let's head over to the motion controller map. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is add our VR swords into our project. So the easiest way to do that is just to select the VR swords from your library and say create project, and then create a new project with the VR swords, and then head over to your project folder, go into content, copy the VR swords folder, then go back to the project that you want to migrate the VR swords to. We're going to use this swords migrate project that I made for this tutorial. Go to the content folder and just paste that in there. So now back in our project we'll see the VR swords folder, and in blueprints we've got all our swords. But the problem is, if we add one of the swords into the world, cool. So if we play this now, you'll see we can move our hands around, but we can't grab this sword. And that is because the swords are using a different blueprint interface from the default one. Okay, so to change that, there are a few different ways we can do that. The easiest way is to simply, instead of using the default pawn or the pawn that you were using with your project, you can simply use my pawn and that'll automatically fix everything. So you can do that by going to VR swords pawn and look for the motion controller pawn swords. So if we delete the old pawn from the world, stick our new pawn in there, then just make sure auto possess player 0 is enabled, and let's see if that works now. Cool. And it's as easy as that. If you want to use my pawn, if you want to use your own pawn and motion controller blueprints, it makes it a bit more difficult, but I will show you how you can do that as well. Okay, and to make that easier, I made a little checklist, well, not a little checklist, a fairly large checklist with a step-by-step checklist that you can go through to make sure you're doing everything correctly. So I'm just going to put this off to the side and let us get started. Cool. So firstly, we want to copy the VR swords folder to your project folder. We did that already. And if you want to use your own pawn and motion controller, we're going to have to do the following. Okay, so we're going to go into Virtual Reality BP, Blueprints, Pickup Actor Interface. So this is the default interface that is used to interact with objects in the world. So let's just put the motion controller pawn back in the world. So this is the pawn that came with the VR template. And if you built upon that in your project, you can just use your pawn then. So we just want to enable auto possess player again. Cool. Okay, so this is the interface that this pawn uses to interact with objects in the world. So what we can do there, first step, is open that up, click on pickup. This is the pickup event or the pickup message. And then we want to go to inputs and add an input. We're going to call that hand. And for type, we're going to say e-controller hand. There we go. Cool, and we can compile, save, close that. Cool, and then the next thing we want to do is open up your motion controller blueprint and go to the grab actor function. Grab actor function. Cool. Cool, and there where the pickup is called in the actor interface, you'll see there's a new hand pin there, and we can get your hand variable and drop that into hand, and that'll just tell the sword which hand is holding it. Okay, now we head back into our swords blueprints, and you're going to have to do this for each sword that you want to use in your project. So let's use the tactical combat sword for this example. I can just click over here to open up its blueprint, or we can double click the blueprint over here. Okay, so here we have the sword blueprint. And then the first thing we want to do is go to class settings, and there you'll see pickup actor interface swords. And we don't want to use this one anymore. We want to use the one that you are using with your VR project. So we can close that and select yes. And what that does is it will add a custom event in the places where the interfaces events were called. So now we can click on class settings again, click on add, and then just select your interface that you're using. Pickup actor interface. So this is the default VR Swords template interface that you may be using for your project as well. But whatever interface you're using to pick up objects in your project, you can just select that there. Hit compile. Cool. Now you'll see we've got some errors over here. Don't worry about that. Now we can look for the comment that says this is called when the sword is picked up. We can zoom into there, and you'll see there's a pickup custom event. We want to replace that with the pickup event from your interface. So we can right click, type pickup, and then you'll see there's an event pickup, and it is from pickup actor interface. So that's the one we want. Click on that. Then we can hold control, just reconnect those. We can delete the old one. Cool. Now we can do the same for the drop event. Oops, you can delete this test throw event. That was just something I made to test the new throw assist features. Cool, so there's the drop event. We can right click, type drop, and we look for event drop, and that is called from the pickup actor interface. Hold control, delete that. Cool, and now we can compile, and you'll see we still have one error. You can click on that, and there's this drop event that's being called. So what we can do to fix that, just drag off this pin, type drop, and then pickup actor interface, drop interface call. And then we can delete the old one. It's better to do is just hold control first, reconnect it, delete the old one. There we go. Hit compile. Cool. Step 1 finished. And now we should have the one-handed swords working, hopefully. Let's have a quick look. Cool. There we go. Cool. So this allows you to pick up the swords, swing them around, throw them around. But what you still can't do is you'll see the swords don't have the advanced physics enabled. So if you hit a static object, the sword will just pass through that because the sword is following the absolute position of the motion controller. So stuff like this works, but it feels a bit unnatural. So to enable the advanced physics and the force grab functions, we're going to have to make some more changes to your motion controller as well. But let me just show you what we need to do first to make the two-handed swords work properly as well. Okay, so for the two-handed swords, there's a few extra things we need to do. And you'll see the two-handed swords have a 2H at the end of their name. So you've got this one, and this one are all two-handed swords. So let's add a claymore into the world. There we go. So for the two-handed swords, let's open up the blueprint. And then the first thing we're going to do is search for cast to. And here you'll see it casts to the motion controller swords. But in this example, we want to use the default motion controller or the motion controller that you are using in your project already. So we can double click on that. We can drag off this pin, say cast to BP motion controller, or whatever your motion controller is called. You can select that there. We can hold control, change that pin, hold control, change that pin, then delete that. Cool. So now if we try to connect this up to there, you'll see it will not work because this has a variable type of motion controller swords, and we are using your motion controller now. So what you want to do is just click on the second hand reference, then click on here, motion controller BP motion controller, or whatever your motion controller is called. So you want to change the type to your motion controller class. And that should allow us to plug that in and click compile. Now you'll see there's a few errors over here. We can just click on that and we can go fix those errors quickly. Some of these you should be able to simply connect the new pin and that'll fix it. So we can check this for the valid. There we go. But this hand mesh, you'll see we can't do that. So what we need to do there is drag off this pin, type hand mesh, and then get the hand mesh down there. Then we can hold control, plug those into there, and delete the old hand mesh. Cool, now we don't have any errors over here. We can click on the next one. Same thing over here. We can't just connect those, so we just need to drag off this pin and then search for motion controller. So drag off motion controller, get motion controller. There we go. We can connect that to this, delete the old one. Cool, that's fixed. Now the last one. Cool, the valid check, we should be able to just connect up there. Cool. Because these ones are getting a variable, we're going to have to drag off the new pin and just get the same variable for those. Grip state, get grip state, and get hand. Scroll down to the bottom, get hand. Okay, so now we can hold control and see if we can just connect those over. You'll see it wants to convert, so that's not right yet. And this one is good, so we can delete that. And that's because the second hand grip state is a different variable from our grip state, the default grip state from the motion controller. So we can just check that. You'll see it's grip enum. So we need to change this variable to grip enum. Change variable type. Just close that. Cool. So now we can connect this one up to there and delete the old one. Okay. But because we changed that, you'll see this equals check is now red as well. So we want to use a new one over there. We can just drag off this, type equals, and then we can say enum equals. Cool. We want to change that to the same setting over there. Grab, hold control, connect that up to there, delete the old one. Cool, and you'll see there's one more red line going down here, and it's also getting the hand mesh. So we can drag off here, type get hand mesh. Here we go. Hold control, put that in there, delete the old one, compile. Boom, no more errors. And before that'll work, we need to make the same changes that we made in this previous sword in addition to those changes with the two-handed. So basically what we want to do is go into your class settings, remove the pickup actor interface swords, say yes, add pickup actor interface, the one that you're using for your project, compile, then go into pickup. You'll see there's a custom event pickup, right click, type pickup, and then get event pickup from the pickup actor interface. Now hold control and just reconnect those. Delete this one. Do the same for the drop event. We can right click, type drop, get event drop from the pickup actor interface. Hold control. Delete the old one, just compile, and we'll see that one error over there, the drop. So we can drag here, type drop, and then pickup actor interface, drop call interface, or interface call. There we go. So we can hold control, just connect those, delete the old one, compile, and let's have a look if it works. Cool, now we've got our sword. We can grab it with two hands. But again, we want to make the advanced physics work so that we can have interaction between the swords as well. And if you want the swords to look a bit better, you can just add a reflection capture. Sphere reflection capture. There we go. Now we can see some details as well. But again, you may have already done this in your project. Cool. And now we want to head back into your motion controller blueprint where we added that hand variable earlier. And we need to add a few components to make everything work in the way it's supposed to work. Okay, so firstly we're going to click on motion controller. Then we're going to add a component. We're going to make that a scene component. We're going to call that hand scene, capital H, capital S. Hit enter. And then we want to grab our hand mesh, drag that onto hand scene so that it's now parented to hand scene. Cool. Now we select hand mesh and we add a static mesh component. Static mesh. And we want to call that SM underscore grab sphere. SM capitals underscore grab sphere. Capital G, capital S. Hit enter. And for the static mesh, we want to make that SM grab sphere. And now for the transform settings, you'll see in this migrate checklist, I've got the exact transform settings over there, so you can just copy and paste those or just type them to have the same values as these. Cool. So we're going to go location X is going to be 4.63 minus 1 minus 0.2. Then for the rotation, we have 179.5 minus 90 and minus 179.5. And for the scale, just make sure this lock is unlocked so that we don't scale it uniformly. Then we can type 0.81, 0.8, 0.78. And again, these values are in this checklist that I'll put up as well. So you can just copy and paste those if you want. Okay, and then one more thing, we need to enable generate overlap events, and that's already enabled over here. Cool. Collision preset, we want to set that to overlap all dynamic. Overlap all dynamic. And we're going to disable the visibility. So we're adding a new grab sphere instead of this old grab sphere. And what this allows us to do is extend that out so that we can do a force grab and grab objects that are a bit further away as well. Cool, so we can select that and disable visibility. Now you won't see it at all. Cool, now what we want to do is click on the old grab sphere. Grab sphere. If you can't select it over here, you can just click on grab sphere in the components list. Right click and say find references. So you'll see there's two references that we found. We can double click on the first one. And this is a on component begin overlap grab sphere. So we want to change any reference to this. We want to change to our SM grab sphere component. So here we want to have a on component begin overlap node. So we can click on this one and you'll see this over here on component begin overlap. We click plus and that'll add it to the event graph. And now what we can do is just hold control, reconnect other comp to other comp as well. And then delete the old one. And then we've got another reference that says get grab sphere. And we can just drag our SM grab sphere component into here, hold control, connect that up to there, and delete the old grab sphere. Cool, then we can hit compile and then delete the old grab sphere. Okay, now we select hand mesh again, and then we want to add a spring arm component. Spring arm. And we're going to call this force grab spring. Force grab spring. Okay, and then we're going to set the settings of the force grab spring to the following, and all these settings again are in the checklist that I'll put up as well. Target arm length 0, enable camera lag, enable camera rotation lag, set these to 15 and 10, that's already on 10, so that's good. Cool. And then under the force grab spring, we want to add another static mesh component. Static. And we're going to call that SM force grab. Now again for the settings, we're going to set the static mesh to force grab, SM force grab. Here we go. And then for the transform settings, we're going to do 22.45, 0, 0. For the rotation, minus 162.45, minus 90, 162.45. And for the scale again, we're going to set it to 0.81, 0.8, 0.78. Okay, for the collision, we want to disable generate overlap events. Set the collision profile to no collision. Compile, then click on motion controller and add another spring arm. Spring arm. And we're just going to leave that as spring arm. And we're going to set the target arm length to 0. We're going to enable rotation lag. And we're going to set the rotation lag speed to 25. Cool. And then with spring arm selected, we're going to add a new scene component. And we're going to call that handle scene. And now we're going to add a physics handle component. Physics handle. Okay, and that'll add it to the bottom there, but don't worry about that. Okay, and for the physics handle settings, we're going to disable interpolate target, and we're going to set the linear damping to 100, the linear stiffness to 100,000, the angular damping to 2000, the angular stiffness to 80,000. Okay, cool. Now we need to create two new functions. So in the functions tab over here, we can click plus function. So we create a new function, and we're going to call that fn underscore reset hands. Fn for function underscore capital R capital H. And then we create another new function, and we're going to call that fn underscore physics grab. Again, capital P, capital G, fn underscore. There we go. Then we double click on fn physics grab, click on this input node, and then under input, we're going to add two inputs. The first one we're going to call grabbed actor, and the type we're going to make actor. Object reference. There we go. And then the second one we're going to call grabbed actor arrow. And for type, we're going to make that arrow component. There we go. Cool. And now we want to copy the code from our sword motion controller over to your motion controller. So what we can do is in the VR swords folder, you'll see there's a pawn folder and a BP motion controller swords. We can double click that. Then we can open the fn physics grab function. You'll see this is everything we need to copy over. So what we can do, just make sure you know how to connect everything up. So you'll see the grab actor goes to the top one, the grabbed actor arrow goes to the bottom one, and then the execution pin just goes to this set use flipped grip node. Cool. So we can select all of that except for the input node. Hit Control C, then go to your motion controller where we just created the new function. Hit Control V, and just move that over there. Cool. And then we can grab the grab actor pin, connect that up to there. The arrow pin, connect that up to there, and the execution pin, plug in there. Cool. Now we have a bunch of new variables that is not yet defined in our motion controller. So what we can do to fix that is just hit compile, and you'll see all these errors over here. And if you zoom in, you'll see errors over here as well. So what we can do is right click on the variable that you see as an error and say create variable force grab. This one, create variable. This one, create variable. And I like to compile every now and then, just so that we don't accidentally try to create a variable for one that's already created earlier in our little stack over here. So now we can do the same over here, create variable for grab actor ref. Compile again. Create variable. Compile. There we go. All the errors are fixed. Cool, now we want to do the same for the fn reset hands function. So this one is just empty at the moment. And if we head over to the motion controller blueprint for the swords, and we open that reset hands function, we can do the same. And all you need to do here is just connect the execution pin to this detach from component node. So we can select all of that except the input, Control C, and in your motion controller for the new function reset hands we created, we can paste that and then just plug that in, compile, and then just fix these errors as well. Right click, create variable, compile. There we go. Cool. So next we want to go back to our motion controller swords, open up the event graph, and you'll see, to make it a bit easier, I color coded all the additional code that I added in these green boxes, so you can see what is different or what is new from the default VR templates motion controller blueprint. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to take these bottom 4 green boxes. It is the update location of physics handle, force grab, grab the object with physics handle, and drop the actor held by physics handle boxes. So we can just select these, and you'll see there are reroute nodes in front of these two. That just makes it a bit easier to connect up and make everything line up nicely. So we can just make sure we're only selecting those. Select all of those. Hit Control C. Now you go into your motion controller. Open up your event graph. And then right at the bottom, just paste all of that. And you can just line that up nicely as well. Cool. So now we can need to connect these two. And to do that, you can go to your event tick. And by default, there's this sequence node after that. If you don't have that, you can just add the sequence node, but you should have that if you worked from the VR template in the beginning. Cool, so we can just drag that back a bit. And now we can just have a look, and we need 2 nodes. So we can add 2 pins. Take the first one, plug that in there, and then take the second one, plug that in there. Cool, now we can hit compile and we get a bunch of errors. We can just quickly fix those. So in the force grab, there's another grip state not equal to this time. So we can just drag off this grip state pin and type exclamation mark equals. That means not equal. And we select the not equal enum. Set that to the same setting over there, which is grab. Connect that there, and then we can delete the old one. Now that is fixed. Okay, so now we need to fix all these unknown variables again, which is quite easy. You can just right click them again, create variable, right click, create variable, right click, create variable. Let's just compile so that those are fixed. Cool, and then we can just go through the rest of them as well. Right click, create variable, right click. Cool, there you can see we don't have a create variable option. That's because we already created it earlier now. If we just hit compile, there we go. Right click, create variable, compile. Okay, and to easily find the other ones, we can just look for the errors in the compiler results that says could not find variable. So we can click on that, right click, create variable. There's the same one, is second hand. Let's compile again. Could not find. Okay, cool. So that's all the variables fixed. So now we just need to fix these other errors as well. Cool. So let's go to the switch hands when grabbing one-handed sword with second hand section. And you'll find that over here. Switch hands when grabbing one-handed sword with second hand. So if we zoom in, the first thing we want to do to fix that, and you'll see that's not an error, so that could be easy to miss, but you want to change this to your motion controller blueprint class. So at the moment it is set to BP motion controller swords, and we want to set that to BP motion controller, or whatever your motion controller is called. So we click on that. So with that change to your motion controller blueprint class, we can hit compile, and then we can just fix these pins. So we can drag off this and get a new length pin or length node, and connect that up, delete the old one, and then just do a new for each loop as well. For each loop. There we go. And we can connect that up to there. Hold control, just connect that there. Okay, and this will give us a few errors if we try to connect these up to those events, the old events. So what we can do first is connect this one so long, and we can delete the old for loop so long. Now we can just recall these events quickly. So from here we're going to recall the event reset do once. Reset do once. And we want to recall the event handle grab. Event handle grab. And over here we want to recall the event handle drop. Handle drop. Event handle drop. Here we go. And now we can delete this one, delete this one, delete this one. Put these there. And now we should be able to connect the completed node over there, connect the array elements to that, and connect this pin over there. Okay, and then in the drop the actor held by the physics handle section, we need to replace a few nodes as well. Right in the middle there you'll see a get all actors of class node again. So we need to change that to your motion controller again. Motion controller. So we're going to change that, compile, and that'll mean we need to change the for each loop as well. For each loop. Cool, and then we'll need to replace all of these variables after the for each loop as well. So we can do those one by one. From the new array element, we can just connect that to the equals node. Okay, and then just hit compile. Now we can drag off this node and add a reroute node. That'll just allow us to see better what's going on. Cool. So now we can just replace all these. We can grab off this and then just search for physics handle. Physics handle, get physics handle. There we go. We can actually move these up a bit just to allow us to replace all of them. Some of these you can reuse, but it may be easier just to redo them in a row so that you don't miss something or connect something up in the wrong way. So we can grab and say release component. Here we go. And then from this node we can add another reroute. And then set is grabbing physics and set is second hand. So we can set is grabbing physics object. Reroute. Set is second hand. We can just connect these up so long. And they both need to be false, so they are good to go. Then we do another reroute node and do a call function reset hands. Connect that. Do another reroute. Let's do another reroute. If we just follow this pattern, it should work quite easily. So from this one we drag and we want to get grabbed actor reference. Get grabbed not grabber, grabbed actor reference. And from that we want to call the fn physics grab. Fn physics grab, there we go. Connect these up so long. And for target, we want to use the same little node. There we go. And then we just want to get component by class, arrow component from your grabbed actor reference. Get component by class. Oops. Arrow component. And then plug that into the grabbed actor arrow. Cool. Just tidy this up if you want. And then we can delete all of the old ones. Just make note of how the release component node is connected. It's connected to false. So we can maybe just connect the other one before we delete the old ones. And then we can connect up the new loop node. Delete that. Move that up there. And just delete these reroute nodes as well. Okay. Now we see another red one over here. Let's just compile and see if this is fixed now. Awesome. So we can just recall this event complete drop. Complete drop. And delete the old one. Boom. Compile. There we go. And then one more thing we want to do in this section. Right in the middle there, you'll see we call the drop event. But you'll see that's still being called in the pickup actor interface swords interface. And we want to use your interface from your project. So what you want to do is just drag off this and type drop. And then pickup actor interface, drop message. And we can hold control, connect that up there. Hold control, connect that in there. Then we can delete this one. And that should be good. Okay, cool, we are nearly there. Let us set, before we forget, just check for your force grab distance variable and set that value to 600. And that'll just tell the motion controller how far out to check for swords when you do a force grab. And if that is set to 0, the force grab won't work at all. Cool, so now we need to go back into our sword motion controller and then just copy these little remaining green areas. Okay, so firstly let's set the initial variables. We can just move this event begin play node out of the way. Then we can select this whole section, hit Control C, go into our motion controller, blueprint, make some space after the begin play node. Let's paste that over here. Let's make a bit more space. I can stick this whole section in there and just connect that up and connect that up. There we go. Now let's hit compile and then just create the missing variables. Right click, create variable, right click, create variable, compile again. There we go. Cool. Now next we're going to copy the green section from rumble controller when overlapping valid static mesh. So I'm going to copy this little piece. And we can just take note of how we're going to connect that in from the true to the branch and then from the false to the rumble controller node. So we can go back into your motion controller blueprint, look for rumble, just extend this a bit, paste that over there, and then from the true to the branch and then from the false to the rumble. Oops, we need to just fix this equals node again. So we can just grab the grip state pin, type equals equals, and then select equals enum, set that to the same one, which is grab, connect that, delete the old one. There we go, compile, perfect. Okay, now we can just copy this little rumbling fix from the rumble controllers on impacts with other elements. And this is just to prevent the controller from rumbling the whole time while you're holding the sword. So we can just select that and just take note, it is connected from the false pin to the rumble controller pin again. So we can copy that, go into your motion controller, just over here, make some space, paste that in there, connect it up from the false to the rumble. There we go. Cool. Now we want to head into the grabbing section of the motion controller swords. And then for each of these functions, we're just going to add the green sections in there as well. Okay, so for the get actor near hand function, if we open that up, we can copy this part first. And it may be easier if we keep this one open so that we can see how it is connected up. So in your motion controller, you can open the grabbing section, get actor near hand. Cool. So there we'll see the for each loop, and that's that for each loop. Cool. And you'll see the does implement interface. And that is that one that we have there actually. So if we copy this whole section, Control C, Control V, we can move this branch up a bit. We can delete this does implement interface check. Then we can, from the array element, plug that in there. From the OR, plug that in there. Cool, and then we just want to change this pickup actor interface just to the interface that you're using. Pickup actor interface. Cool, and that looks good. Now we have another little section here that says this is needed for force grab to work. Copy that little section. Copy. Go down here, just make some space. Paste that in there. Okay, now we can just look how that is connected. We can double click this to add a little reroute node just to make that a bit neater. And then from there we want to connect that to there, and we want to connect that to there. And then from the completed node of the for each loop, we want to plug that into the is valid node there. And then from both of these set variables, we want to plug that into your return node. Cool, and that is that for this function. So we can go to the next function in our grabbing section, which is release actor. And you'll see that's only this little green part over here. You can just select that, copy, open the release actor function in your blueprint as well. Just make some space after the input node there, and then just paste that over there. Okay, then just hook that up. Bloomps, bloomps. Easy peasy. Cool, and then we just need to connect the false node to your wants to grip variable set as well. Cool. And then we want to open the grab actor function. You'll see there are a few green ones there. Open your grab actor function. We can do this from the beginning. Grab the first green one. That goes right at the start. Paste that. Connect that up. Cool. We can go down and grab this whole green part. Grab this green part. It may be helpful to grab the reroute nodes as well. So we can copy that. And we can just paste that to the side over here first. Cool. Then we can just check how to connect that up. So we can just search for the same nodes. Get actor near hand. Get actor near hand. There you'll see we've got these nodes. Okay, cool. So then we need to connect this nearest mesh pin to our target down there. And then after the attached actor, set attached actor. We're going to connect that to our branch down here. Then we can just move these two all the way to the back, out of the way. Then we can connect or select our two green boxes again, and then just move them up a bit so that they sit kind of in the same way as our other one. That just makes it easier to see if our connections are right. Okay, so that's that. And you'll see we can disconnect this target over here. And I like to keep things neat. Makes it easier to see what's going on. Cool. Okay, so now that's cool, that's cool. We can bring these two back. And we can see how they are connected up. Okay, so from our branch node, the true goes into our other green one, the false goes to this little reroute node, and that goes into our pickup node. So you can drag that, plug that into the pickup, and you'll see these two little reroute nodes. The top one or the front one goes into target. You can plug that into target, and then we can remove this motion controller node and plug this little node into attach to. And then we'll see there's another little reroute node down here, and that just goes all the way to the rumble controller node. So we can just grab that, add a little reroute, and plug that into rumble controller. Cool, and then we can just move these back a bit so that we can plug this node into the pickup node as well. Cool. And we can hit compile, no errors, so that's good. Cool, and the last thing we want to do in our motion controller blueprint is just go into your construction script. Cool. And then open the construction script for my motion controller sword as well. And you'll see there's this create dynamic material section over here. So we can just copy these nodes, copy, and then go to your construction script, just paste them in, compile. So that should work now. We can just check that real quick. Cool. So now we can grab the swords. You'll see we've got the cool physics interactions of the swords interacting with physical objects like other swords or the floor. You can't just go straight through the floor now. And throw assist still works. There we go. Cool. So now we just need to activate the force grab. So the force grab technically already works, but we don't have an input set up to activate the force grab. So let's do that quickly. Okay, so to do that, we just need to go into your motion controller pawn. Let's open up the blueprint. Cool, and then we just need to add an input. Cool, so the easiest way is just to open up my motion controller pawn as well. And then you'll see there's a little green section here called Activate Force Grab and Reset Level. So we can just copy this whole section, copy, paste that into your motion controller pawn blueprint. Cool, we don't need these for the reset level. We can delete those, and then what you want to do is just recall these from your motion controller. So we can drag off this, set force grab, scroll down to the bottom, set force grab. Cool. Now we can copy and paste that one, set the top one to true and the bottom one to false, and we just connect pressed to true, release to false, delete the old ones. Cool. Make some space and then just drag off the left controller as well. Get force, no, not get, sorry, set force grab. Copy and paste. Oh, and just connect the target up to your motion controller as well. Same for the previous one. There we go. So you've got these two new ones. Set the top one to true. So pressed goes to true, released goes to false. Then we can delete the old ones. If you're in Unreal Engine 4.24 or upwards, you may need to create inputs in your project settings instead of just calling these controller buttons directly. But yeah, if you need help with this, just let me know and I'll be glad to help you out. So let's just check that now. See if our force grab works. Cool. So that sword is too far to reach now, but if we press the button 2 or Y and B on our Oculus controllers, you'll see this little force grab cone that comes out. And if you go over a sword, it turns green and it starts moving inwards to your hand. And then if you just grab normally, you grab the sword. And you remember we set that force grab distance to 600, which means you can grab stuff that is 6 meters away. But if you want to increase or decrease that, you can just change that force grab distance value in your motion controller. That's just within reach now. There we go. Cool. So that's how that works. I hope this helps. Thank you very much for all your support and all your feedback. I really appreciate it. And if you need any more help, please just let me know and I'll be glad to help you out.